These are the exact foods that you need to be eating to help with your ADHD brain. Growing up having ADHD, when I was a kid, it was a challenge eating the right foods. And because it was a challenge eating good foods, I did suffer. My ADHD symptoms became worse. But then when I understood the importance of food as I got older, I found that my ADHD symptoms started to deplete, and I was able to perform better in school and perform in all the different challenges that we deal with ADHD. But as you know, with ADHD, because it's a challenge, we tend to suffer. Because we're not doing very good in our diet, therefore our ADHD symptoms become worse. So I want to break down what foods you need to focus on. So we're going to talk about 3 different kind of categories as far as what foods you should be implementing to help with your ADHD brain and reducing your ADHD symptoms. The first one is that you need to eat dopamine-rich foods. So what are dopamine-rich foods? Usually what dopamine needs, so if you're not familiar with dopamine is a neurotransmitter that tends to be deficient with people with ADHD. It's our motivation type of chemical in our brain that helps us motivate us, help us do tasks, stay focused, stuff like that. So when we are suffering that, we need to focus on foods that are more dopamine rich. And this is what helps build the dopamine. And so it's going to be mostly proteins, amino acids are really important for building dopamine. And because of that, we need to focus on foods that do have lots of amino acids. So I'm going to give you a little bit of list here of what kind of foods you can incorporate. So one is beans, such as like lima beans, legumes, lentils. Those are really great. It has lots of different amino acids to help with dopamine, helps build dopamine. Of course, meat, but trying to get fish, get a good variety of different fish, get chicken, poultry, as well as, beef. And of course, lamb is a great option, has also great omega-3s in there that are really important for the ADHD brain, but most importantly helps build the dopamine levels. And then of course, eggs and cheese really have great amino acids, help also build the dopamine levels. Other things is like a good variety of different nuts and seeds, as well as high protein vegetables is going to be really important. And then, protein powders, it's not my favorite, but definitely protein powders can be helpful if you're not getting any protein, especially if your kids are having a hard time getting protein in their diet, using protein powders. The reason it's not my favorite because it doesn't have a really good high source of bioavailability protein. What is bone broth. Bone broth has one of the highest bioavailability proteins and is a really good source for helping building dopamine levels, but more specifically, helping with your ADHD brain. The second category is eating smart carbs for your serotonin. So serotonin is also another neurotransmitter that tends to be low or high with people with ADHD. Serotonin is known to help stabilize our mood. If it's low, people tend to be more depressed. And then of course, it'll be high if we feel more agitated, more anxious. And so it's really important to balance this out. And to balance it, we need to eat more serotonin foods that are smart carbs. So carbs is usually what does help build serotonin. So if you've ever experienced when you feel really depressed, you are going to go right to the carbs. You're going to eat but more of the simple carbs, right? We go for the sugars, the chocolates, and binge on the couch because we feel really depressed, right? And we are just going to eat and binge off of a lot of different carbs, but not the smart carbs. And that's what we need to do, is we need to eat more of the smart carbs so it can sustain proper serotonin balances for our ADHD brain. So some options of here would be like sweet potatoes, steel cut oats, cherries, apples, brown rice, sweet corn, cantaloupe. These are all great sources and options for helping building serotonin levels, but building in the proper way and that are going to be more sustainable to keep the serotonin levels balanced and helping your ADHD brain and your mood more stabilized and balanced. The third category is that you need to eat foods that help with zinc, iron, and magnesium deficiencies. Now, people with ADHD tend to be magnesium and zinc and iron deficient because they've seen in studies that ADHD people tend to be more prone with having these types of deficiencies. And zinc, iron, and magnesium, all 3 of them are important for building neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters is really what helps with our chemistry brain and helps with us be able to help us be motivated, help us do tasks. It's so important to be able to have good balanced neurotransmitters, and zinc and magnesium and iron are all 3 really important ones. Now, a simple list of this is going to be, of course, lean proteins are going to be important, poultry, seafood, and nuts such as like walnuts. Walnuts tend to have lots of zinc in it, so a good source of zinc, and soy. So all these different options have good variety of different iron, magnesium, and also zinc to help us with those types of deficiencies. Now, if you are really deficient in any of these kind of categories, you definitely should get it tested. And if you are really deficient, you should probably have to supplement it because sometimes food is not enough, especially if you are really deficient in in these types of different minerals, and so you want to be able to supplement that. Now, this list is nice and all, but it isn't effective if you aren't consistent eating all these types of foods and also getting a good amount of foods. Now, you might be wondering, okay, how much should I be eating? What are the ratios here? A good rule of thumb is half of your plate should be vegetables, mostly vegetables, and then some fruits in that half of that plate, but mostly vegetables. And then 1/4 of it should be your healthy proteins and fats, and then the other 1/4 of your plate should be also the very smart carbs, the complex carbs that I talked about. But this also can't be as effective if we are eating the wrong types of foods for our ADHD brain. So it's really important to avoid the wrong types of foods that affect our ADHD brain. You're probably wondering, okay, what are those types of foods I should be avoiding? Well, join me right here on this video where I talk about the foods that you should be avoiding for your ADHD brain so that you can have an optimal brain. So join me here on this video right now.